you hold GI insurance and you can afford to pay your premiums in advance, listen to this tip from your Veterans Administration. Paying your insurance premium quarterly, semi-annually, or once a year saves money for you. It also saves your government bookkeeping expenses. Full information at any VA office. This is KGO-TV, Channel 7, San Francisco. The makers of Girard's French dressing present It's Glen Again, with the eminent blind pianist-composer Glen Hurlburt and his wife Dorothy.
Hi there, I'm Glen Hurlburt.
And I'm Dorothy. Glad you could join us.
We certainly are, because we want you to meet an especially good friend of ours today, a very talented friend, I might add. This is Picante. Hi, Picante.
Hi, Glen.
Hi, Picante.
Hi, Dorothy.
I think that what he has to offer today is going to be extremely interesting to you. And will you two excuse me just a minute, because I have a date over at the piano.
Very well,
Okay.
very well. You see, Glen is, he's promised to tell the small fry one of his about stories. So.
And here it is. There was once a little duck named Dick, who lived way down by the creek. Oh, maybe I should have said creek, but then that would have made the duck's name Deke, and that would never do. You see, Dick the duck had a very serious problem. Every time he walked along the dusty roads, his feet would get all warm, and he couldn't cool them in the water because there was a big flock of mud hens that fed along the shore. And every time he'd approach them, they'd nip at his little feet. And this was something that Dick did not like. Well, there was an old goose who used to say to Dick, "Honk, you gotta push if you want to get anywhere around here." Dick said, "Well, that wouldn't be polite." The goose said, "Honk, honk, honk, doesn't make any difference. You want to get anywhere in this world, you gotta shove, you gotta push, you gotta crowd. That's the only way to get anywhere." So Dick went down to the edge of the water, and without so much as an excuse me, he pushed his way right through the mud hens and began swimming in the water. Oh, it felt so good on his hot little feet. Pretty soon he started saying, "Yeah, look at me, I can swim faster than anybody and dive deeper too." Well, the mud hens all shook their heads sadly and said, "Too bad, isn't it? He was such a nice little duck, and now he's so rude and a show-off." Well, Dick went right on. "Oh, look at me, I can swim faster than anybody and dive deeper too." And he continued playing in the water. Well, there was an old water snake who watched all this. He said, "That young man needs a lesson." So he slipped up behind him and snatched out all his tail feathers. Well, he was a pretty sad-looking duck and very embarrassed. So he went to the shore and began to weep. And the goose came by and said, "Honk, honk, look at the funny-looking duck without any tail feathers." And Dick said, "Well, you needn't laugh. It was your idea." And he continued to cry. Then he noticed the old bullfrog. And the bullfrog was saying something that made a very deep impression on Dick. What he was saying was, "Beg pardon, beg pardon, beg pardon." Dick thought, that's an idea. So he went down to where the mud hens were, and he said, "Beg pardon, beg pardon, beg pardon." And they all stepped aside and said such things as, "Why, what a polite little duck we are. Step right through here." Rather handsome, isn't he, even without his tail feathers? And Dick began swimming in the water. Oh, it felt so good on his hot, tired little feet. And from that day on, instead of being an unhappy little duck, he was very happy, because he found it was much better than being an imitation of a silly old goose.
That's a real ducky story, Glen. Oh, I didn't mean it as a quack.
Oh.
But tell me, what do you call them about stories?
Well, he calls them all that because they're always about something, you
I
see.
see.
Precisely. They're about the cricket on the hearth, about Jack and the beanstalk, about all sorts of things. I have a splendid little story right now about Elmer J. Lettuce Lover, who lived in Hackensack, New Jersey. Now, Elmer was only half living. He was underprivileged, undernourished, and under-Girarded. That means that there wasn't a single grocery store in Hackensack where Elmer could get a bottle of Girard's original old-time San Francisco French dressing. Well, then, a kind friend sent Elmer a bottle all the way from California. And Elmer suddenly began to live. And ever since then, he's been getting Girard's French dressings by mail. Well, you know, there's a basis of fact in that story because there are actually hundreds of people throughout the East where Girard's isn't sold in stores who have it shipped to them by mail. Now, of course, oh, by the way, they pay up to $50 a bottle. Can you imagine that? Now, you can go out tomorrow and get a bottle of this wonderfully delicious French dressing at any grocery store, and you'll pay way, way, way less than that $50 a bottle I almost forgot to mention. So don't run the risk of being under-Girarded. Get a bottle of Girard's original old-time San Francisco French dressing tomorrow, won't you? Thank you. Well, Picante, what are you playing?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Glenn. What am I playing?
Say, let's hold everything for just a minute. We haven't formally introduced you as yet, Picante.
Well, allow me. Compañeros, tengo todo gusto en presentar mi amigo Picante. In other words, meet my friend. Picante is quite an authority on Latin American instruments and rhythms, and I have a hunch that he's going to try to stump me.
Well, maybe so. See, many people consider Glen's musical sense to be rather amazing. His ability to identify a composition after hearing only part, for instance, the bass part, or his ability to reproduce a musical passage after hearing it for the first time. And so, Picante?
Well, what I'm going to try with you today, Glenn, is very difficult. I'm going to play different rhythms on these Latin American rhythm instruments, and I'm going to ask you to identify not only the instrument, but also the rhythm I'm playing on it, the band leader it's identified with, and if you can, the tune I'm thinking of.
Well, let me see here. Now, wait a minute. The rhythm and the instrument, the composition, and the orchestra. Oh, my goodness.
And I introduced you as a friend? That was a lethal error.
You want to try it?
Well, sure, I'm game.
Okay, here we go. Number one.
Well, the instrument you have there is Las Maracas from Cuba. And, of course, it's a rumba rhythm, and I would think of Xavier Cugat.
So far, so
But
good.
I don't get the tune.
You want to try it once more?
Well, better.
Okay.
The peanut butter, right?
Right you are. Well, that's fine.
What's next?
Oh, now we have a difficult one. See what you can do with this, Glenn.
Oh, now that isn't so hard. The instrument is the guiro, which is used in the tango, so
Right.
that'd be the rhythm. And I think of Enrique Madriguera.
That's a wonderful thing.
And I think I even know the tune because taram tiram dum says derecho viejo.
What's next?
Oh, man.
Well, this one is sort of a switch. See what you can do.
I get that. The instrument are the bongos.
Right.
And it's a mambo rhythm. And it must be Perez Prada, the orchestra.
Yes.
And his famous recording of In a Little Spanish Town.
Right?
Right? Let's
Right.
try it together once. A two, Sarah.
Wonderful.
You'll have to make them a little harder, I see.
Now, what's next?
Well, this one is awful rough. Here we go.
Oh, wait a minute. That is bad. It's a Brazilian instrument, the maracachá.
That's good.
The rhythm is a samba, but it could be almost anybody.
Well, it could be almost anybody. It could be you. So why don't you play something?
Well, let's play cumbia now, but instead of the maracachá, you have a tambor, huh? Let's use the tambor.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Picante, picante.
Wonderful, Glen.
Bien hecho.
That's
Say,
terrific.
Picante,
Yes.
I just realized that you could be a great help to me.
How's that?
Well, it says on this Girard's label, shake vigorously.
Uh-huh.
And I've never seen such a great shaker as you. So would you please?
All right, I'd be glad to. And this instrument isn't only easy to shake, it's wonderful for eating purposes,
Oh,
too.
Wonderful, you're right.
Friends, Girard's Valley of the Moon dry wine vinegar French dressing is just so exotic and spicy that it fairly makes your head bone reel when you sniff that wonderful fragrance. And on a salad, there's where Girard's can make your taster literally dance for joy. You know, there's no other French dressing in all the world that's anything like it, for it's made with a wonderful dry wine vinegar from California's Valley of the Moon.
Now, this is the bottle you'll probably see at your grocer's. But pretty soon, you'll find Girard's dry wine vinegar French dressing in this new bottle. And here's the new bottle of Girard's old-time San Francisco French dressing. But whether the bottles are new or familiar, what's inside is exactly the same. And believe me, it's delicious. And we certainly do hope that you'll try Girard's French dressing tomorrow. Thank you.
We've had a lot of instruments, a variety of sounds here, and I think we could have one more. There's certainly time.
Good.
Picante, what do you have there?
I have the conga, Glen.
Oh, I love that.
That's my favorite.
You know,
My favorite, too.
well, I got some stops on here. There. Let's do one of my own tunes, Senor O'Shaughnessy, shall we?
Okay.
Give us a good fast beat. Right. One time a certain Irishman went down to Mexico. He liked the climate very much, and liked the people so. He bought a house and settled down to live a life of ease. An Irish caballero, if you please. Oh, Senor O'Shaughnessy, a happy little character is he. And what's more, he's jolly company. My little friend, Senor O'Shaughnessy. He doesn't speak a lot of Spanish, just a word or two. When anyone says buenos dias, he says how do you do. And if he fails to understand, he doesn't even blink. He smiles and says, si, senor, I think. Oh, Senor O'Shaughnessy, a happy little character is he. Si, and what's more, he's jolly company. My little friend, Senor O'Shaughnessy.
Oh, that was fun. Picante,
Oh.
thank you so much for coming to see us.
Mil gracias, amiguito.
I enjoyed it, too.
And thank you for coming to see us. See you next week.
And until then, adios.
Hasta la vista.
Goodbye.
This is ABC Television Network.
Hi,